We're talking about, just prior to this, those in a family situation where in the midst of that, they're dedicating themselves. But what's described in the scriptures, because most often is the case, that people are so absorbed in family life and maintaining their family members that they have no time or no concept of spiritual culture. That's why it's there. First of all, it says, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschidmam yatati siddhi yatatamapi siddhanam kaschidmam veti tadvada. Saying from the beginning how rare it is for someone to even be interested in spiritual life, whatever they are. Brahmachari, married, unmarried, whatever. It's very rare. Then within the group of those who engage in spiritual practices, same thing Mahaprabhu telling Rupa Goswami, the Veda Vadarata and Gita, and also he's saying, those who give lip service to the Vedas, they can tell you, oh, in the Vedas it says this, Vedas says that. They're going on with their household affairs. We see in India, which is supposed to be, the land of renunciation and, gyanis, vairagis, tapashis, and everything, how riveted the people are to family life, as if there's just no other possibility. This is what life is, this is what it's meant for, and if someone doesn't aspire to it, they think there must be something wrong with them. I remember we were near Panihati. There's also a place called Tribeni, and we made some life members, and they invited our party to go out to their house for like the weekend, do some Nagar Sankirtan and have some Harikatha and things there. And after the first night, we're all at this table taking some prasadam, and at one end of the table was this unmarried woman who was like, she was just staring off like that. She was obviously, let's say, how put this delicately, well, the Bengalis would say pagal, but we'll just say it in Bengali. But she's like, and she's it's hard to not notice her, you're saying, huh. And the man, he sees that we notice her, and he's trying to make some excuse about her situation. He goes, oh, last week she got the moksha. Saying she got moksha. In other words, what's moksha? She's lost her mind. Right? He goes, she got the moksha. But it was his way of apologizing, so therefore she's not married, this, that, this could be the only reasonable explanation. Right? So, Guru Maharaj, he knew all those slokas too from the scriptures that are anti-family life and mundane association with women. And for some years, when he was very young, he went to live with one of his aunties. And she detected in him some anti-woman sentiments. So at one point, she asked him, what's your problem? And he said, well, I've read different statements in the scriptures in different places about the association of women, household life, etc. And he said, remember, this is his relatives, so the women, they also know Sanskrit, they have some idea of what's in the scriptures too. And she said, do you know that women are all representations of Lakshmi Devi? And she quoted some sloka. And Guru Maharaj, because he has regulated his thinking by scriptures, he said, well, hearing that, he had to readjust his position. How he would view women. From then he's seeing them as representations of Lakshmi Devi. We hear of the follower of Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, or in his group, it's told to Babaji Maharaj that he's going to marry, and they want to know what Babaji Maharaj thinks about that and what his advice is. And he says, tell him to dress and decorate his wife like a Brajagopi. And what is his thing? Because he said, then, remembering that the Brajagopis are meant for Krishna's enjoyment, he said, this will check any exploiting tendency within you. Then again, on this subject, when Srila Guru Maharaj was asked about someone, how to, what's the word? Deal with women in a spiritual way, if you have to manage them spiritually, like in an ashram situation or something like that. And Guru Maharaj gave an interesting example. He said, the problem is not women. He said, the problem is the exploiting tendency that is within men. The tendency to exploit women. And he gave an example. He said, when you have a splinter that's in your skin, if it's like in the skin but half out, you can pull it out easily. He said, but if it's under your skin, it's very difficult to remove. He said, so the half in, half out, he's saying that's like physical proximity and working situations, working relationships. He said, but the problem is what's underneath. So he said, the tendency to exploit women, that is the enemy, not women. So when we read these statements in the scriptures, they're referencing, you could say in this sense, the exploitation of women. And saying that the desire to exploit women will take someone down and pollute their consciousness, and they'll go far away from spiritual culture. It won't be a possibility. So when Parikshit Maharaj asked his question, I remember I had the third volume of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and it ends with his question. And the second canto hadn't been published, and I was really devastated. It was this whole big build-up, and then Sukadeva Goswami comes, and they describe how beautiful he is. 16-year-old naked boy, self-realized soul, not even trace amounts of exploiting tendency within him. That's why they tell you the story before. He walked by the naked bathing women and nothing registered in his eyes, no exploiting tendencies, so they didn't bother to cover themselves. Parinistitopi naragunye uttama shloka lilaya. He's situated in the Nirguna plane from birth. In the womb of his mother, he's in the Nirguna plane. Right? That's why he's selected as the loudspeaker to broadcast this. But Parikshit Maharaj asked this question, what is the duty of one in life, specifically for one who is about to die? And the first canto, it says, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports. And I went like, oh my God. I went running to this bookstore, begging the man, scout, trying to find, and he just, it wasn't published yet. But then when it came out, the second canto, they say, I just sent this, Nidraya, Riyate Naktam, Vyavayana Chabhavaya. Something, Kutamba Bharanena Va. We just discussed this. Kutumba means family, Bhara, kutumba bharanenava, means the burden of family life. So Sukadeva is saying, yes, most people just get so absorbed in the male-female relationship and mundane sexuality and the outcome maintaining their families that they have no interest in these things. That's what he's saying. So, and what's commonly aired about in India, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So they say, dharma, the brahmachari, artha, marriage, kama, then moksha. When you're old, when you've been through the whole life cycle, then you can try for liberation. When your senses don't, you've lost sensory capacity and function. But the Bhagavatam, from Prahlad, what does he say? Komara achare pragyo dharmam bhagavataniha. If you can start in your childhood this type of culture, that's best. It'll serve you throughout your whole life. So we shouldn't think that the Bhagavatam is condemning the Vaishnava, the Grihastha, those who are actually in Grihastha ashram, which means their family life is structured in such a way as that they can progress devotionally. It's talking about being so absorbed in family life that you have no time, no interest in spiritual culture. But it is interesting, it does give some encouragement to the brahmacharis to hear Sukadeva Goswami. But what I find interesting is that if you take what he says in the second canto, where he's saying, eyes are like peacock plumes if they're not used for seeing the deity of the Lord. The ears are like the holes in a conch shell. The tongue is like croaking frogs. I mean, all these very heavy examples about how useless, what a tragedy is to not use the senses for Krishna culture, right? For spiritual culture. Because they're saying you can do 3 things with them. And the Shruti Stuti, personified Vedas chapter. You can use them for sense gratification or to follow the rules and regulations of the scriptures, revealed truth, regulate your life. That's what a real karmi is, actually. Somebody is regulating their life in terms of scriptural suggestions, injunctions. But then the third aspect for actually, mukti arhatvanyata rupam swarupena vibhastiti, substantial hearing about Krishna, chanting about Krishna, glorifying Krishna, etc. But if you look in the Madhya Lila, the second chapter, which is the summary of what the whole final pastimes of Mahaprabhu are, right? Because it says, what is it? Shesh Lila divided into Madhya and Antya. So the final pastimes are summarized in the second chapter of Madhya Lila. And Srimati Radharani, she starts saying things that are equally as intense and shocking as what Sukadeva says. And in the purport, Saraswati Thakur quotes the whole Sukadeva section of the Bhagavatam as a parallel to what's being expressed from her. And she's saying the same thing. Those eyes that don't behold the beautiful form of Krishna, they're used. What is the purpose of such eyes? So we can take it from him. In the beginning stage, it's like encouraging one to more, I mean, that's an understatement to say encouraging one to take up spiritual life, spiritual practices. But I think we have to think of it in this way. The intensity sounds rough or rude or crude from our point of view. Like, it's some fanatic talking. But if we approach it in this way, that of what he's observed, back to the Drishtva, Rishi concept, something that was so beautiful, charming and sweet and heart-swallowing, saying to not use you have all the apparatus, everything you need before you to appreciate all of this, and to not use it for that is a tragedy. So it's not in a vicious way that these things are being said, or dismissive way, insulting, mean-spirited. But rather on the basis of what has been appreciated. It's more of a lament, saying, why would you not, having a glimpse of that beauty, want to behold the beauty of Krishna? Yadanucharita lila karna piyusha viprut sakrid dadana vidutadanda dharma vinashta. Radharani herself saying, once hearing, and we could say by implication substantive hearing, once substantially hearing about Krishna, the beauty of Krishna, some even remote semblance of that appears in your consciousness and the deep heart's core, why would you want to hear anything else? Unless you were forced to. Forced by karmic circumstance. But this is so charming that you would remain in continuous connection with that, awake internally, even in the midst of being surrounded by karmic circumstance. So it's interesting, Saraswati Thakur puts the whole Sukadev section in the purport that is almost a mirror of what is being expressed by Srimati Radharani. But we can understand there's her way of seeing, and what is Sukadev seeing? And then now we're back to gradation. Sometimes Guru Maharaj would put it this way. When Srimati Radharani takes Krishna Nam, he says, what is the voltage of that Krishna Nam? Like sometimes we see a box, an electrical box, and they have like lightning bolts on it, and big warning, like high danger, high voltage. Like, don't touch this. If, unless you're a super qualified person, do not touch this. Right? An electrician, but like a high-level electrician. So when we say Sevan Mukhe Hijivado, what is the voltage in the Krishna Nam of Srimati Radharani? What is the voltage in the Krishna Nam of Yashoda? So when Sukadev, from his perspective, same thing, but now dive deep into reality. He's saying, to not use your senses to cultivate Krishna conception is a tragic waste of life. The old Brahmana Kripana. What is Kripana? The interesting word. One of its meaning, like Kripa, mercy, Kripana, miserly. What is the fault of a miser? That they've accumulated all this wealth and they don't spend it on anything. So, what is that thing? Yovai tad garga vidavasma lokot sakripana. Garga Upanishad says, having accumulated the wealth, labdva sudurlabam bahusambhavante, the wealth of human life, to not spend it on spiritual culture is a tragedy. And that's the general spiritual idea. Then what to speak of the Krishna conception as presented by Sukadev, and as and its fullest Krishna conception is Srimati Radharani herself. So she says, Sakrid Adanu Charita Lila Karna Bhusha Viprut Sakrid Dadana Viduta Danda Dharma Vinashta Saparigriham Kutumbam Dinam Utsrija. She's saying these things. This is in the Brahma Gita. It's a type of prajalpa, according to Rupa Goswami. It appears as though she is angry at Krishna. And she's voicing many complaints, but it's all inverted. It's expressions of divine madness. So she's saying, just once hearing about Krishna ruins everything. You know, it ruins your family life and your position in the world. And people, they run so madly after Krishna, they forget to even, take a little bit of money when you go. You're going to have to live. Take a little something. No, they're just running madly. They're so enchanted by Krishna. She's saying, Lakshmi Devi. And she's saying, what's wrong with her? She's the goddess of fortune, and she's like trying to give herself to Krishna. She said, I think she listened to him, his sweet talking and all these other things, and she lost her mind. Now she's crazy. Lakshmi Devi's gone crazy. She's saying, but I'm not so crazy. And who's she telling this all to? A bumblebee. I'm not crazy like that Lakshmi Devi. Bumblebee, do you stop touching my... That Krishna, he'll make you go crazy. He'll ruin everything. And she gives many examples. So everything is like in an inverted position, showing how madly in love with Krishna she is, and what they call man, or loving anger. He ruined everything mundane. So for those who can say such things, then that's the inverted system of measurement. Then we understand who really has some deep attachment to Krishna. Rukmini is saying, after you've seen the beauty of Krishna and his form, his everything about him, you're saying, how could you possibly think of someone else as your counterpart? And she gives some gross description of the human body. So again, coming from our position, we think, oh, they're attacking these things we hold near and dear. But actually, it's coming from the point of view of having experienced, observed the beauty of Krishna. When from that position, looking at something else, right? Mukunda, he's so beautiful, he makes mukti look ugly. It's like Kleshagni Subhadam Moksha Laguta Krit. The actual pure devotees, we hear from Kapila and later echoed in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, they have no interest, and not only no interest, that idea of liberation without any potential for seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, feeling Krishna, it's like, oh, it's hell, a hellish nightmare to them. So then we'll think, well, that's not our, we're, we'd take mukti, like any day of the week if someone offered it to us. Because we don't have a proper conception. We're not properly conceiving. So if we hear what's being expressed by these devotees, even though we can understand that's far away from where we are presently, we can understand, again, the Sambandha Avideya Prayojan. This is the direction, this is the conclusion, and there is a plane where an aspiring servitor can genuinely express such feelings. Hare Krishna.